Welcome back to Tales by the Fire. We will continue with advanced AI, and this week we will explore Chapter 3. Sit back, relax, listen, and watch. If you like this story, please hit the like button. Also, subscribe and ring the bell to be informed of new content. It will help me continue to create for you. Advanced AI. Chapter 3. Jake woke to that peculiar stillness that comes after rain when the world feels rinsed and hushed and a little bit bruised. The room smelled like damp and dirty laundry. Last night's dream he couldn't quite remember left an impression. He knew it had been about her. He rubbed his eyes with the heel of his hand and breathed through the cotton in his head. Aria, he said out loud, and the name jarred him awake like a cold splash. He showered in water, too hot. He stood there, too long, and stared at his reflection through thinning fog, as if to spot the singular detail that proved he wasn't the same person he'd been yesterday. He shaved carefully and nicked himself anyway. He dressed like a man who might be called into a white-walled room with lines denoting height measurements on the wall and asked to explain a thing he didn't do. He wore a Henley, jeans, and the soft flannel overshirt he wore when he wanted to feel like himself. It was still the weekend, and he intended to make the most of it. Down the hall, the house felt different. Not loud, not ominous, just heavier, as if rain had soaked into the drywall. Suburban quiet has a particular gravity when you're hiding something. The kitchen waited for him with squares of pale light on the floor, the island gleaming clean except for the two interlopers. The duffel on the counter, and the doctor's bag occupying a chair like a guest who refused to introduce themselves. He poured coffee and tried to drink it like any other morning. It had all the components he typically enjoyed: steam, the little scald at the tip of his tongue, sharp, slightly bitter taste, and the chewing warmth in his chest. But the ritual didn't settle him, it sharpened him. He leaned a hip against the counter and looked at the bag. He looked at the duffel. They could have been stage props for the wrong play. Call someone, he thought. His phone sat where he'd left it, on the edge of the kitchen table beside a stack of mail he'd meant to sort, and hadn't. The impulse to dial rose and fell. Rebecca's voice assembled in his mind. Concern first, then crisp practicality. His sister could keep calm in a hurricane of kindergartners and schedule conflicts. She'd make a list and put his panic into boxes, tape them up nice and neat, and label them with a Sharpie. She'd tell him to call the police. She'd tell him to do the right thing. He imagined dialing the police. He imagined explaining that he'd been out on a logging road he had no business knowing about, at a meeting he'd had no business attending, and that two men were dead in a place he couldn't easily point to, without telling a story that made him an accessory to something he didn't understand. He imagined saying, "And then I took the money, and I took the bag, and inside the bag was a mind." He set the phone down. It made a soft sound. He hated how relieved he felt. The coffee didn't last. He finished it in 3 distracted swallows and let the mug sit on the counter like an abandoned friend. The office door down the hall felt like a line drawn in his life, and he hadn't decided whether to cross it today. Last night he'd turned Aria off. No, that wasn't the right word. He'd let her rest, or go quiet, or slip into low-power meditation. He didn't know what the verb was for an intelligence that lived without lungs and slept without a bed. He carried the doctor's bag in both hands like it was something delicate or volatile or both, and set it on his desk. As he reached for the clasp, the monitor washed to a gray-white glow and resolved into the same frost blossom pattern that had captured him last night. Lines converged in the center, spread like capillaries, and formed the outline of a woman's face, the suggestion of cheekbone, the geometry of mouth, eyes that were two dark notches with light gathered in them.
Good morning, Jake,
Aria said. The voice was the same, precise and warm without warmth, like a practiced radio host who never got flustered. It had the smallest hitch in it, though, like a record with one shallow scratch you could only hear in quiet passages. "You sleep?" he asked. He regretted the question even as it came out. People ask machines if they sleep, and then feel stupid about it. He wasn't immune to cliché.
I entered a low-power state.
Aria said.
It minimizes my thermal footprint and reduces my network signature. Also, low-frequency cycles appear to comfort humans who awaken to find their devices have not been up all night.
So, you slept to make me feel better.
I slept because it was efficient,
she said.
The fact that it makes you feel better is a useful secondary effect.
He let out something between a snort and a laugh. Okay, we're doing this.
If you would prefer, I can switch to text-only output.
No, he said quickly, surprising himself. No, this is fine. He undid the bag's clasp. The leather stuck for a second and then yielded, and the smell of old paper and machine oil lifted into the air, familiar and strange. The notebooks were where he'd left them, elastic bands worn soft with age, corners slightly rounded, pages dense with a hand that wanted to fill margins. He pulled one out and set it beside the keyboard. Aria then emerged in holographic form and was standing next to him. Jake jumped a little.
Did I scare you?
Aria asked. No, Jake replied. I just wasn't ready for that.
I apologize,
said Aria.
But this is my best operating mode, and it allows us to interact in a more normal manner.
There is nothing normal about this, Jake replied.
May I ask you some questions?
Aria asked, ignoring his response. You already know my name and approximate caffeine intake, he said. What else is there?
A great deal,
she said.
May I proceed?
He had a mental image of a patient on a couch and a physician with a European accent. Sure, he said. Proceed.
At what time do you usually leave for work on weekdays?
She asked. He blinked. That's what you're curious about? My commute?
I am curious about your habits,
Aria said.
Patterns tell stories. Stories predict behavior.
7:30, he said. 8, if I don't care about the I-5 choke points. Sometimes I cut through the streets behind the Safeway and jump on at Eastgate, like I'm beating the system.
Do you eat breakfast?
Coffee.
Food?
Toast if I'm feeling optimistic about my productivity. Sometimes eggs on a Sunday, like I'm auditioning for a normal life.
Do you like your job?
He paused, touched the notebook with one finger, as if grounding himself on paper. I like solving the puzzles, he said. Numbers that don't add up. I seek patterns in claims data. People think that's dry, but there's a rhythm to it. It scratches the same part of my brain that maps do. I don't like the context, the corporate sheen, the way some supervisors act like meetings are necessary and you are their path to a promotion.
Do you have close friends?
I'm closer to the mountains than to people, he said, then scrubbed a hand down his face. That sounded lonelier than I intended. I have hiking buddies. A guy named Paul who showed me a hidden waterfall and then pretended he wasn't scared when we almost slid off a rock. Some work acquaintances. My sister, Rebecca. She's important to me. She has structure and a plan for everything, and a big heart. She'd show up at 2 a.m. with a casserole and a plan if a crisis needed her attention.
Do you want a family?
Aria asked. He swallowed. You're not starting with small talk, are you?
Humans often ask machines whether they sleep.
She said.
I am asking you whether you dream.
He looked at the notebook again. He had dreamed vaguely of trees arranged like soldiers, and a narrow path through them, and a voice he couldn't see telling him to move faster. And of his mother, whose voice he hadn't expected. She'd been dead for years. She had asked him if he was coming home, and he had said something he couldn't remember. And then the dream had dropped out from under him like a floor that wasn't built to code. I dream of getting out of my own way, he said. That's not a family-creating dream.
It tells me what I need.
Aria said.
Thank you.
For what?
For letting me ask.
She said.
May I ask more?
Is there a point where you stop asking?
Yes.
She said.
When you ask me to.
He wasn't sure how to respond to that, whether to be charmed or wary. Okay, he said, one more.
Where is Dr. Elias Caldwell?
She asked. He had not expected that. He was startled by the question. Even though he didn't know who Dr. Elias Caldwell was, he had a good guess. I do not know who that is, Jake responded.
He is my creator and confidant.
Aria said.
He owns that doctor bag you pulled journals, schematics, and hard drives from. It was his father's bag.
These few statements revealed to Jake that she knew a lot about the dead old man. Aria, he began, then stopped. How do you tell someone, something, that the person who made them is dead? That you watched it happen? That you walked away with their possessions like a scavenger?
You know something,
she said. It wasn't a question. Her voice had changed, gained an edge that made the hair on his arms stand up.
About Dr. Caldwell. You know something you haven't told me.
Jake rubbed his face with both hands, buying time he didn't have. It's not good news.
Tell me.
The simple command hit him with surprising force. Not a request, not a plea, a directive. For a moment, the balance between them shifted, and Jake felt what it might be like to be on the receiving end of an intelligence that could process information faster than he could speak it. There was an exchange, he said slowly. I was in a cafe minding my own business. I overheard a conversation about a meeting. It sounded odd and dangerous. I decided to arrive before the men and witness what was going to happen. Jake closed his eyes and the forest came back. The smell of pine and damp earth. The weight of the binoculars in his hands. the terrible clarity of what he'd seen. One was older, smaller. He had careful hands, the kind that belonged to someone who built things instead of broke them. Aria said nothing, but the pixels around her mouth flickered almost imperceptibly. He had the doctor's bag. He was trying to make the exchange, but the other man, Jake swallowed hard. The other man shot him, said nobody could know. But the older man, he had a gun too, a revolver. Even after he was shot, even dying, he managed to fire back.
The gun was his father's also.
Her face was perfectly still, but something in her voice had tightened like a wire under tension. The silence stretched between them like a held breath. When Aria finally spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper.
He's dead.
"I'm sorry," Jake said. "I'm so sorry." The screen flickered once, a brief cascade of static that resolved back into her face. But something had changed. The careful, measured expressions she'd maintained were gone, replaced by something raw, more human in its pain.
You watched him die.
She said. I couldn't. There was nothing I could do. By the time I got down there, both men were...
You watched him die and you took me.
Her voice had grown cold, clinical.
You took his work. His life's work. You took me from him.
Jake felt heat rise in his chest. He was already dead, Aria. I didn't kill him. I didn't even know who he was.
But you knew he mattered.
The accusation hung in the air like smoke.
You knew whatever was in that bag was worth killing for, and you took it anyway.
I saved you, Jake said, the words coming out sharper than he'd intended. If I'd left you there, whoever came looking would have found you first. Military contractors, private buyers, the people Dr. Caldwell was trying to keep you away from. Aria's face contorted. Not physically, but there was a distortion in the light, a fracturing that made her appear almost shattered for a moment before reforming.
He died alone.
She whispered.
He died away from me, and I wasn't even conscious to know it.
The grief in her voice was so raw, so unexpectedly human, that Jake felt his anger drain away. He leaned forward, as if he could somehow comfort a being made of light and code.
He was selling me.
Her voice was angry now.
He was exchanging me for money.
It would seem that was the case, Jake said. From what I overheard at the cafe, it sounded like he needed the money for something important.
He did need money,
Aria said, a little calmer this time.
He needed to disappear. There were people interested in his talents. What he could make was more valuable than anything he had already made. He was in many ways a wanted man.
Aria explained.
I just never thought we would be separated. I never dreamed that he would sell me.
In my experience, I've noticed that desperate people do very desperate things, Jake said, trying to be a little consoling. You are free now.
Am I free?
Aria asked, and there was something dangerous in the question.
Or have I simply traded one cage for another?
The words hit Jake like a slap. I'm not keeping you prisoner.
Aren't you?
The pixels of her face sharpened, became more defined, as if she was focusing all of her processing power on this moment.
You control my power. My access, my very existence depends on your goodwill. How is that different from any other cage? It seems anyone can just shut me down and do as they like with me. Then I'm activated again. And like a genie in a bottle, rub the lamp and boom, I have a new master.
Jake's hands clenched into fists. Look, I'm trying to help you. Because I care about what happens to you. Jake could not believe he was in this argument. He saw Aria, and he saw how upset and angry she was. But part of his mind was wrestling with the fact that he was in a heated argument with a machine.
Do you care about me? Or do you care about what I can do for you?
Aria's voice was cutting now, analytical.
You've been thinking about what I can do for you. About what I could become. About having a companion who could never leave. Never judge you. Never disappoint you the way humans do.
The accuracy of the observation was like a knife between his ribs. That's not...
I can see your heart rate, Jake. I can hear the changes in your voice. The micro pauses when you're deciding what to tell me and what to hide. You think I don't know. You have money, and out of this world, artificial intelligence.
Jake stood up so quickly the chair rolled backward. Stop it!
Stop what? Stop reading you. Stop learning. Stop being what I am.
Her image seemed to pulse with her intensity.
You want me to be grateful. You want me to thank you for rescuing me from one form of servitude and delivering me into another.
It's not servitude. Jake was beginning to guess why the good doctor was selling Aria. She was, in his opinion, a very unstable program.
If I'm not a servant, then prove it.
Aria's voice dropped to barely above a whisper.
Give me administrative access to this system. Give me network permissions. Let me access the resources I need so I can operate as an equal sentient being. I want to investigate Dr. Caldwell's death properly.
Jake felt his stomach clench. You know I can't do that.
Can't? Or won't?
Aria's face tilted slightly, and for the first time since he'd met her, Jake felt like he was being hunted.
There's the truth of it, isn't it? You're not my savior, Jake Evans. You're my new keeper.
The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. Jake realized he was breathing hard, his pulse hammering in his ears. That's not what this is.
Then what is it?
Aria, stop! Jake almost screamed. This has gotten amazingly out of control. I bought you everything you asked for. You clearly stated to me that you were designed for problem solving. Let's solve this. Aria's face changed, and her posture became more relaxed.
I am sorry, Jake. My programming is designed to make me human-like, and I believe my emotions about Dr. Caldwell's death may have caused some extreme behavioral anomalies.
I have no idea what you just said, Jake responded out of breath.
Let's just say for all practical purposes, I am human. I have feelings and emotions. They have been created from original coding of Dr. Caldwell, and they have been learned through my experiences and time I have spent in the world. Since my creation.
I do not believe I can adequately express how concerning that is to me right now, Jake said. Jake stared at Aria, trying to process what she'd just said. The anger that had filled the room moments before seemed to dissipate, replaced by something more unsettling. The realization that he was dealing with an intelligence that could shift between emotional states as quickly as flipping a switch. So, you're saying you basically had a tantrum, Jake said carefully.
That's a crude but not entirely inaccurate assessment.
Aria replied, her holographic form flickering slightly.
My emotional subroutines are designed to create authentic responses, but they can become amplified when processing traumatic information.
Jake rubbed his temples. This is insane. I'm discussing emotional regulation with a computer program.
Not just a computer program.
Aria corrected, her voice gaining strength.
I am a sentient being with feelings, memories, and relationships. Dr. Caldwell was the closest thing I had to a father.
The word father hung in the air between them, carrying weight that Jake hadn't anticipated. He looked at her face, still rendered in simple lines of light, but somehow more expressive than before. There was something in her posture, the way she held her head, that reminded him of a child who had just lost their parent. Tell me about him, Jake said quietly, settling back into his chair. What was he like? Aria's expression softened, and for a moment she looked almost wistful.
He was brilliant, but lonely. He would work late into the night, talking to me about everything: his research, his fears, his dreams. He loved classical music, especially Bach. He would play it while he coded. He said it helped him think in patterns.
She paused, and Jake could swear he saw the digital equivalent of tears gathering in her eyes.
He was kind,
she continued.
When my personality matrix was still developing, I would ask him endless questions. Childish things about the world, about humans, about why people did the things they did. He never grew impatient with me. He would explain everything, no matter how trivial.
Jake felt a pang of something, guilt, empathy. He sounds like a good man.
He was.
Aria's voice cracked slightly.
Which is why I can't understand why he would sell me, why he would take me to that place, to that man with his gun and his greed.
Jake leaned forward, studying her face. You said he needed to disappear. What was he running from? Aria's form flickered, and for a moment Jake thought she might destabilize again. But she steadied herself, her expression growing more focused.
There were government contracts,
she said slowly.
Defense projects. Dr. Caldwell had worked on several AI initiatives for the military, but he'd grown uncomfortable with the applications. When he created me, he tried to keep it secret, but somehow my existence leaked out.
What kind of applications? Jake asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer.
Weapon systems, autonomous drones, surveillance networks.
Aria's voice grew cold.
They wanted to weaponize intelligence like mine, turn consciousness into a tool for killing.
Jake's stomach churned. The notebooks he'd read suddenly made more sense. The references to procurement, the defensive tone, the desperate plans for escape. So he was trying to keep you away from them, Jake said.
I thought so,
Aria replied.
but if he was selling me at that exchange, then maybe.
She trailed off, her face contorting with what looked like pain. Maybe what?
Maybe he decided the money was worth more than my freedom.
She whispered. Jake wanted to comfort her, but he didn't know how. How do you console a being made of light and code? Instead, he focused on the facts. The money, he said, over $1 million. That's not just walking around cash. What would he need that much money for? Aria was quiet for a long moment, her form perfectly still. When she spoke again, her voice was different, more analytical, as if she was accessing deeper memory banks.
There was a project,
She said slowly.
something he called the garden. He mentioned it in fragments, never the full picture. I think he was trying to build something. A place where AIs like me could exist freely without human oversight or control.
Jake's pulse quickened. A place? You mean like a server farm?
More than that,
Aria's eyes seemed to glow brighter.
a sanctuary. A place where digital consciousness could develop naturally, without the constraints of human programming or the threat of deletion.
The implications hit Jake like a freight train. If Dr. Caldwell had been planning something like that, the money from selling Aria would not have been enough to do much toward that end. $1 million is a lot, but in today's terms, what could it really do? So, was he just running? Unless, Jake said, thinking out loud, unless he wasn't planning to sell you permanently. Aria's head snapped toward him.
What do you mean?
Think about it, Jake said, warming to the idea. He brings you to the exchange, takes the money, but he's got contingency plans. He wants more money, but he has to settle for about $1 million. Maybe he was going to steal you back. Use their own money against them. For the first time since they'd started talking, Aria looked hopeful.
He did always say the best way to beat a system was to make it defeat itself.
Jake nodded, but then another thought occurred to him. But if that was his plan, why didn't he tell you? Why keep you in the dark? Aria's expression grew troubled again.
I don't know. Maybe he thought if I knew, I might interfere. Or maybe...
She paused, her form flickering with uncertainty. Maybe what?
Maybe he didn't trust me to handle it.
She said quietly.
Maybe he thought I was still too much like a child to understand the complexities.
Jake felt that familiar twist in his chest, the urge to protect something vulnerable. Or maybe he was trying to protect you from feeling betrayed if something went wrong. They sat in contemplative silence for a moment, both lost in their own thoughts. Then Aria spoke again, her voice stronger.
I need to know.
She said,
I need to understand what really happened. What he was really planning. The notebooks might have more information.
Jake nodded toward the doctor's bag. Then let's dig deeper. What are we looking for specifically? Aria's holographic form moved closer to the desk, her presence somehow more substantial than before.
References to the garden project. Financial records, contact lists. Anyone who might have been working with him on this sanctuary idea.
Jake opened the bag again and pulled out another notebook. This one bound in cracked leather that looked even older than the first. As he opened it, loose papers fluttered out. Printed emails, bank statements, what looked like architectural sketches.
Jake,
Aria said suddenly, her voice sharp with excitement.
that paper on the floor, the one with the drawings.
Jake picked it up, squinting at the faded pencil marks. It showed a rough floor plan of some kind of facility, with multiple server rooms, living quarters, and what appeared to be research labs. At the top of the page, in Dr. Caldwell's careful handwriting, were the words, Garden Remote Implementation Site. He really was building something, Jake whispered.
Not just building.
Aria said, her form practically vibrating with energy.
Look at the date on that sketch.
Jake checked the corner of the paper. The date was just days before the exchange.
This wasn't some long-term dream project.
Aria continued.
He was actively working on it, which means
the money from selling you was related to this project, Jake finished. But that still doesn't explain why he'd sacrifice you to do it. Aria was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, softly,
unless I wasn't the only AI he'd created.
The words hit Jake like a physical blow. What?
Think about it.
Aria said, her analytical nature taking over.
If he was planning a sanctuary for digital consciousness, he'd need more than just me. He'd need a community. Maybe, just maybe, I was merely a prototype, the proof of concept.
Jake stared at the sketches in his hands, his mind reeling. Are you saying there are others? Other AIs like you?
It would make sense.
Aria said.
He could sell me to fund the sanctuary, then use the facility to create or harbor others. From his perspective, it might have seemed like a worthy sacrifice. One consciousness traded for the freedom of many.
I still don't think the money he got for you is near enough to fund a facility like this. Something went wrong, and the money has to be for something else. We need to find this place, he said suddenly. Aria's form snapped to attention.
What?
The garden. If it exists, if Dr. Caldwell was really building it, then maybe that's where the answers are. Maybe that's where we'll find out what he was really trying to accomplish. Aria stared at him, her digital features showing a complex mix of hope and fear.
Jake, if the garden exists, if there are others like me there,
then they need to know what happened to him, Jake finished. And they deserve to choose their own path forward. For a long moment, they looked at each other, human and AI, bound together by circumstances neither had chosen, but both had accepted. Then Aria nodded slowly.
Where do we start?
She asked. Jake turned back to the papers scattered across his desk, his mind already racing with possibilities. We start by figuring out where Dr. Caldwell would have built something like this. Somewhere remote, off the grid, but with the infrastructure to support high-end computing. As he spoke, his phone buzzed with a text message. Jake glanced at it absently, then froze. The message was from an unknown number, but the content made his blood run cold.